Hey, what's up? This is Dominic D'Angelo of BrassRingMedia.com. How are you? How's it going? Usually, kind of, sometimes, I do a daily wrestling hotline. Not so daily, not so weekly, but it's typically what I do on Brass Ring Media. I do some interviews here from time to time. Hey, guess what else I also do? I also do Straight Talk with the Boss. That's with Greg Gagne, Magnum TA. Last week we had quite the episode. Quite the episode. Holy cats. We talked about Power Town. People did not like answers. People were very, very chatty in the live chat, and I had to navigate through it. Reason we did that is because I wanted to give Greg and Magnum, my co-hosts, the platform to kind of speak and maybe clear some air about their situation with Power Town, what's been going on, so on and so forth. A lot of the watchers did not like it. A lot of the chat did not like it. They were angry customers, rightfully so. Power Town, just from my perspective, needs that better communication, and that seems to be pretty clear. And the aspect too, the reason I wanted to do it was I know Greg and I know Maggie, and I know that they have good hearts and their intentions are pure. Greg is he's a talent acquisition guy, and he's got big ideas when it comes to that. So when he wants to help the betterment of legendary wrestlers in the past, so I think his intentions are pure when what he did and trying to acquire all those 200 and something talents, so to speak. And Magnum, in turn, is a smart business guy. And Magnum is friends with Greg. And he saw what Greg's intention was. And Greg appreciated what Magnum was able to do from a business side standpoint of things. So this partnership formed. And Power Town Wrestling started cooking a little bit more. Obviously, they do the series one, gets out, had some effective ones that Cardona and Brian Myers happened to miss. And then, there was some issues there. That gets solved. People love the line. They love what the ultras look like. More to come, it seems like, and everything to that effect, and pre-orders. So this whole ordeal happens. Gets all laid up. There's complications, everything going on with that aspect of things. Very novice, me, when it comes to the figure business. I don't know anything about the operations. I don't know how Power Town works, anything to that effect. All I know is Jim Cornette and his co-host made a clip about it and talked about it. And sure, Cornette and his co-host have one of the biggest wrestling podcasts there ever is. People tune in. And so when that happens, I'm like, hey, let's get you out there and get you to say something just so people are in tune with everything. Well, yeah, boom. Their questions didn't get answered to the element that they wanted to. They did get clarity that, hey, the figures are still, did get assurance that the figures are coming. Anywho, we do the video. I publish it after the fact. Matt Cardona and Brian Myers actually do a episode recapping the whole thing too, and they do it in a very diplomatic and nice fashion. Well, fair fashion, I would say. Cardona was great. He was in the live chat with us doing it, giving his questions and wanting more answers and stuff like that. And then Myers, after the fact, that I learned too, he was really diplomatic about it all too. They're not Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette has his own tone. I will give a little history about me and Jim Cornette, which he is probably completely unaware of. I mean, imagine all the emails that he gets and the people that he interacts with, whether he's at conventions or something else. Well, way back 2019, it was WrestleMania in New York City. We were at Queens, the Melrose Ballroom. Did I work for MLW at the time? No, I was just media at the time. So I went there to cover MLW Battle Riot 2. Who's meeting and interacting with fans is Jim Cornette. He's still part of the commentary team. And so I wanted to go and introduce myself. Never met Cornette before. I always appreciate his knowledge and his aspect for what he does, the insight that he gives, even the sense of humor to a certain degree. Obviously, he's blunt and says some things that I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. But I do appreciate his wrestling knowledge. I went up to him and introduced myself. He's super nice and cool dude. Like, just really quick exchange of pleasantries and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, I'd love to interview you if you have the time. He's like, let's send me an email. He's nice about it. I was like, okay, great. And so that was it. That was all the interaction I've ever had with Jim Cornette in person. I worked for WrestleZone at the time. And so what happens is there's the G Raver incident goes down. I think I've interviewed two at the time. I formed a connection with Stephen P. New, his attorney. But obviously, like you hear about Stephen P. New all the time on the show. And I like Stephen P. New. And like, so we've interacted several times. We always say hi to each other when we run into each other. It's been a few years now at this point. But like, he was somebody I could correspond with and kind of get more information. I wanted to do some coverage on WrestleZone regarding the G Raver incident. So I I connected with Stephen P. New on several issues, not just that, but I correspond with Cornette through email regarding the G Raver incident many years back and everything like that. And so I was kind of at hand to relay messages and write about the content. So I highly doubt Cornette has made any connection that was me at the time. Who knows if he'll even remember at this juncture because of all the emails and correspondence he gets in the first place. Anywho, so like, yeah, I'll listen to Cornette from time to time. I obviously, like, it's 4 hours long. It's a long show. I like do listen to it when I find a clip entertaining. Well, hey, much more entertaining can it get for me when they're covering us? They're talking about us. And so, yeah, I decided to tune in. When they initially made the clip about Power Town, of the one we addressed, I thought overall Cornette was pretty diplomatic about it. Obviously, he took his pot shots, but that's expected. It's like it's a Jim Cornette show. He's gonna say stuff. It's what makes him entertaining. So, yeah, that's fine. I'm totally fine with it. And so, I tune into this. Oh no, well, so let me I get a text from a former colleague of mine saying, "Hey, you're famous. Jim Cornette has trashed you." I'm like, "What?" And sure enough, he's him and his co-host Brian Last, who I also have history with. Do I talk about this yet, or do I play the clip first? I'll share my history with Brian Last a little bit right now. Brian Last, I never liked really, and to say that Brian Last knows who I am would probably be maybe generous, but to say I was not on his radar before uh, would be I was on his radar for sure in several fashions. He has me blocked on X, so I did call him out at some point or another on X, just because I don't like how he handles himself. Well, it's fair. Hey, people didn't like how I handled myself during that whole rundown of Gagne and Magnum there. But he ended up, yeah, like I said, so he does the Arcadian Vanguard, obviously, a network, a really old school, kind of a cool vibe, a lot of cool wrestling historian stuff too. I've tuned into a couple episodes over the past several years, but I'm not going to say who exactly was involved or anything to that effect. But Brian Last does not get along with ad-free shows. I work for ad-free shows too. But I ended up, somebody asked me to do an interview on Arcadian Vanguard on one of the shows. I was like, heck yeah, I would love to. And so we chat about wrestling history and kind of my fandom and everything to that effect, and my experience in the wrestling writing world and everything to that effect. And so interview was great. Everything went fine. I was looking forward to hearing about it. And I was like, oh, maybe this will be kind of cool. It's like I've had my differences with, Brian Last in the past, but who knows? Like, you never know what can happen. So, like, maybe we can get along or whatever. Well, here, lo and behold, I get notified that the interview cannot be published. And so all it was just a really nice conversation with somebody that I'm very dear friends with now to a great extent. He's one of my favorite people in wrestling world. He's so smart. He has so much great experience. Can't praise him enough. But yes, so I have been on Brian Last's radar. So I'm sure maybe he doesn't know me that much, but I'm sure he probably has a gauge of what my name is because of what I've said and who I worked for and all those kind of elements coming into play. All right, let's play the first clip. Now, there's 3 different clips I had clipped up here. It's gonna be a little bit of fun here. Look, I'm all for like humor, things like that, and Cornette is funny, so this is some funny shit. So let's get to it though. Here is clip one. Also, let me
Lately to seek out.
before I get to this, I gotta say I like the graphic. I don't know what happened to the Hanna-Barbera guy, but this new aesthetic is cool, and I'm a big X-Men fan, so and I'm a big Magnum TA fan, and I played basketball in high school, so this all hits the right elements for me. Anywho, all right, let's start this right from the top, and here we go.
I haven't had time lately to seek out, these type of things. But apparently nobody else has either because it'd been out for 3 or 4 days. It had like 1,100 views. I don't know what platform.
And that was more views than any other video on that channel has ever had. It's not necessarily a place that people go to check out content.
Okay, let me address that first real quick. Brass Ring Media is a new platform. It used to be the Kurt Angle Show. So technically what Brian Lance is saying is inaccurate on several levels. Number one, this is not the most viewed clip that we have from Brass Ring Media. I've done some other stuff that has more views than that clip of Power Town, that episode in particular. So that's not true. What also is not true is it's far and away not the most viewed clip on that channel because it was the Kurt Angle channel. There's plenty of other clips that have way more views. So technically, Brian Last is a little not as forthright in that assessment there. But let's continue, shall we?
Was it the host is that his thing or whatever? Because it was like, I mean, we're not gonna show pictures of people while we're maligning them.
Do they ever show pictures? It's this static graphic all the time. There's never pictures on there. You never see Cornette, or there's never a video component to this. So, and that gets done later on too. It's like, yeah, well, you're a podcast, so here we go.
But it was like that. Suddenly, this guy had been left in a 1991 time capsule buried in the basement of a juvenile hall. This guy was who they chose to be on a program that he hosed, this slimy looking fellow that then was buried because he was trying to ask them questions, but he was scared shitless to try to ask them any questions that were scrolling on the screen from all of his live commenters. Where's my shit? Where's my money? Where's my figures?
All right. So some funny shit right there. Like, look, I had to look back and see exactly what I was wearing because I was like, a 1991 time capsule juvenile delinquent center. Was I dressed like Parker Lewis? And like, I went back and looked and I had a Herb Albert t-shirt on, the Tijuana Brass, and I had like a baseball cap on. Maybe some nostalgia stuff in the back, like I have Gambit back here. I don't know. It's like 1991. I'll take 91. I love the year 91. So also slimy looking fellow. I have never been called that. So I didn't know if I looked at that because I had a mustache. Is that why? Maybe that's why. I didn't have the beard. I just had the mustache. So slimy, maybe, I guess. But here, we'll finish the rest of this clip. It's not much longer.
And it's for an hour. I don't know what the fuck I was hearing.
That was it. Well, so, yeah. Okay, so that's Cornette. Obviously, I get a kick out of Cornette. I like that stuff. And, fun pot shots, I have no problem. And like, even if I did have a problem, they don't care. So, hey, speaking of not caring, let's hear what Brian Last has to say later on about me. And then we'll do a little breakdown. Let's take a look.
A host who, correct me if I'm wrong, may be a candidate for the worst wrestling podcast host of all time. Least professional, no presence, no knowledge, no balls, couldn't ask a serious question, just wants to kiss the wrestlers' asses. There's a reason you have no views, and there's a reason no one cares about your content. It's because you're an ass-kissing bozo who shouldn't be doing this.
All right. Whoa. Holy smokes. Shots fired, right? Wow, that's pretty intense. And I gotta say, I don't. I'm all about having therapy and mental health and everything that affect. So I kind of enjoy taking a deeper look into some of that stuff. Now, I am by no means a psychologist or a therapist or anything to that effect, and I will never diagnose, but I'll do a little psychoanalyzation since Jim and Brian have done that on their show before with certain people, psychoanalyze and make some assessments and assumptions about what is the mental state of some of these people. But I'm curious if Brian Last has ever heard of Carl Jung and the shadow. Well, I pulled up some notes regarding this. I've kind of been very fascinated by Carl Jung. I tried reading some of his texts. I bought his books. It's like deciphering code. It's because he's was a German, you know, German, psychologist and everything like that. So all this stuff is like transcribed into English, and it's very, very hard to read. I had to literally every few sentences I'd go back and reread. Anywho, but I got a gauge of what Carl Jung's about and kind of his philosophy, and I think it's a very fascinating philosophy regarding the shadow. And I think kind of parallels to maybe what Brian Last is thinking necessarily about me. Okay, so let's talk about this. I pulled this straight off. I typed in Carl Jung shadow. This is like the AI overview and stuff like that, but it basically encompasses the point I'm trying to get across here. So one of the most common ways the shadow appears is through projection, where individuals find themselves disliking or criticizing certain traits in others that they secretly hold within themselves. Becoming conscious of this shadow through shadow work, a process of self-reflection, dreams, and confronting projections is crucial for psychological wholeness and integration rather than perfection. So nobody's perfect, right? I'm not perfect. Brian's not perfect. Jim Cornette's not perfect. Magnum and Greg are not perfect. Okay, so how does the shadow manifest? The unconscious dark side, it's darkness within itself, holding all unwanted aspects of the personality that are pushed away from conscious awareness. Let's read that one more time. It's the darkness within the self, holding all unwanted aspects of personality that are pushed away from the conscious awareness. So it's traits you might not like about yourself. And then it's also, there's repressed traits. This includes social taboos like cruelty, anger, and jealousy, but also potentially positive traits like hidden creative potential, instincts, vitality that were rejected and repressed. Okay, so you think about this from that aspect, cruelty, anger, jealousy. I don't know if he's necessarily jealous. I don't have a whole lot of YouTube views. Browsing media is still hopefully on the up and up here where we keep on plugging away. But yeah, don't know how jealous he is. Maybe he's jealous in a certain fashion that I show my face and I'm able to interact with people. We never see what Brian Last looks like. He always has, it's just the great Brian Last, who's the man behind the curtain, so to speak. So maybe there's a little jealousy there. But I mean, in that little moment, there's anger. It seems like pretty cruelty stuff. He said some pretty harsh shit there. So yeah, how's the shadow manifest here? Through projection. One of the most common ways the shadow appears is through projection, where individuals find themselves disliking or criticizing certain traits in others that they secretly hold within themselves. So let's go back and listen again to what Brian Last had to say about me. Let's go back.
And the host who, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe a candidate for the worst wrestling podcast host of all time. Least professional, no presence, no knowledge, no balls, couldn't ask a serious question, just wants to kiss the wrestlers' asses. There's a reason you have no views, and there's a reason no one cares about your content. It's because you're an ass-kissing bozo who shouldn't be doing this.
Man, so the ass-kissing bozo is something that really stands out to me. Straightforward, I said it already, like I'm friends with Greg and Magnum. I know who they are. I appreciate who they are. So I do have a bias. I will not like disparage them. I'm not going to, attack them and, put them on the defense. I wanted to give them a platform to speak their mind. Who does Brian Last host a podcast with? Jim Cornette. Who else does he host a podcast with? He might do some stuff on Arcadian Vanguard, but you never hear him anywhere else. So what is his meal ticket? It's Jim Cornette. Who does he interact with all the time? Jim Cornette. Brian Last is a pretty big ass kisser. So he calls me the worst podcast host possibly of all time. He says I have no balls. He says everything to that effect. Where, dude, you do your own show here. And I'm kind of thinking that's how you feel about yourself. You're seeing these traits that you don't like in yourself, your insecurity of putting this out there about me so harshly, where you act like you don't know me whatsoever. You have no idea who I am. You act like that. I think you probably have a gauge for who I am at the very bare minimum. And so for you to just go on the attack to me like that was direct shots to me. Just some nobody who's interviewing Greg Gagne, Magnum TA. He went over, right? I don't know. That's my perspective. So let's talk about uncautious behavior in the shadow. Unacknowledged shadow aspects can lead to a sudden, uncontrolled reactions, irritability, even cruel behavior as suppressed energy seeks an outlet. His outlet is right there in front of us. Trashing me. Going for the jugular. And wow, he did. Okay, let's hear what I can't remember what the rest of this clip says, but let's listen now to it.
It was like they had taken Michael J. Pollard and poured grease over his head and put him out there to host a fucking program. I just had to bring that up.
Okay, I had no idea who Michael J. Pollard was, but if you saw the screen earlier when I first started the show, I figured out who he was. I did a little Google, and my God, get a load of this. He's the dude from Scrooged. He compared me to the dude from Scrooged.
Geez, maybe I should have given you the $2, huh?
Great character actor. My goodness. And like dipped in oil or whatever he said too. Like didn't get that reference at all. Is that because I'm bald? I had a hat on. I have no idea what he meant by that. But hey, Michael J. Pollard, that's digging up somebody way back there. So I love movie Scrooge. So I'm A-okay with that. All right. I have one more clip. This is another. I just wanted to reiterate how Brian Last really went after me, like big time. So here we go. Let's take a listen to this last and final clip I have set for
the video, and the host, who was, again, as bad as any wrestling podcast host I've ever seen.
Yeah, I can't believe he's ever done this before. Certainly, this is the guy that would sit there and just let them drone on.
Yeah, and he's drinking beer too in the middle of it's all on video.
Wouldn't you be?
I don't know if I'd be involved with any of these people in a podcast, to be quite honest with you.
Okay, so yeah, I drink beer all the time on my shows. I do a show with RVD. I drink beer on there. Not all the time, but I like regularly I will. Like it's a Friday, it's 5 p.m. I kind of like it's a good way to loosen up. And I'm like, hey, I'm sure this is gonna be quite the experience hearing all these live commentate chats. I'm sure they're not gonna favor a lot what Magnum and Greg have to say sometimes. I am gonna have a beer. But Cornette also mentioned too, like I was like looking and my lip is quivering and everything like that. Like I'm like nervous. No, I'm trying to navigate the chat. And I want to get the questions answered right. But at the same time too, it's like, yeah, I'm giving Magnum and Greg a platform to speak their mind about what they want to say, everything to that effect. And I know like just the situation that they're going through. It's very overwhelming to try to follow a live chat and try to get something as polarizing as this topic was for so many people, and understandably so. So, yeah, but that's kind of my thoughts. Like, look, the fact that I got trashed by Cornette, it's kind of says something, I guess. Yeah, I doubt he knows me from Sunday. Like, doesn't. I mean, I've emailed him several times, like just kind of in a friendly basis, like whether it's try to maybe get an interview or speak to him about stuff, or even I think I've acknowledged just like something I enjoyed that he said or something. And obviously he says stuff that I disagree with though too at the same time. Overall, I think a lot of these shows that do. And yeah, here's another reason, like Brass Ring Media. Who knows Brass Ring Media? That's what we're trying to do, is get people to know Brass Ring Media and get people to know, like, I do a show with Rob Van Dam. The channel does not get a lot of hits. It doesn't. I'm just shooting from the hip. I'm trying to make shows work. But a big aspect that we don't do, we don't go for like the hating on stuff. Like, we don't attack people. Like, I don't, like, yeah, some stuff is juicy to talk about and kind of fun to talk about. And I'll talk about topical issues and the news that I'm covering, but I don't go for the easy bait, the low hanging fruit and things like that, where Cornette doesn't have any regard for any of that. He doesn't care. Like, he doesn't. And Brian Lance, that's his meal ticket. So he's going to go along for the ride. Like, and think about the shadow stuff. That made me think about that when I heard him go after me like that. I'm like, holy crap, that's really harsh for somebody he acts like he doesn't know. But overall, like, and the neat thing too, last night I recorded with Rob Van Dam. I did the show and we went through the chat, and Rob sometimes talks about controversial stuff and things like that, but ultimately Rob is very positive and optimistic and kind of fun person. We don't go after, I could ask Rob about, like, what do you think about this? Or, Stevie Richards hated on Kyle Fletcher. What do you think about this person? And it's just like, we don't do that. We don't hate on people. And like, when I ended the episode and I was looking back at the chat, there was one user that was like, you guys are so happy. And it's like, it's like, he said, like, in a gay fashion almost, but it's in a joyful fashion. Everybody's happy. And it's just like, it's cool to see, like, just you guys having fun and enjoying yourself. And that's it. And like Rob and I talked about that too, is like, yeah, we don't go after the trashy, newsworthy stuff. So we're probably not going to get a lot of hits. And yeah, when you're on Brass Ring Media and you're just Dominic D'Angelo or Zach Haydorn or Tyler Sage or Ashley Mann, and you're not Jim Cornette, your channel's not going to have a whole lot of hits yet. That's the hope, is to make it a bigger thing. So hopefully we can get, probably not the level of Jim Cornette, the Cornette Experience or the Drive-Thru, but I'd like to be a little bit more on the radar. And I'd like Brian Last to be a little bit more on the radar, maybe about himself. Maybe you need to connect that shadow with yourself, because, man, that was harsh. All right. This has been a good time. I barely sipped this beer because I had a lot to talk about. But hey, thanks everybody for tuning in to Brass Ring Media. Give us a shot. If you like what you're seeing, hit like, share, subscribe, get the word out. We do interviews here. I just interviewed independent talent Adriana Mosley. She's so cool. It was really fun to talk to her for about 30 minutes. We covered a lot of good ground about women's wrestling on the independent scene, state of women's wrestling. We talk about music, video games, and we do some rapid fire wrestling related questions as well. And her psychology background. She talks about, so speaking of psychology, she talks about it on there. So check out that interview. I've interviewed Mark Briscoe here not too long ago. Interviewed Kip Sapien as well. So those interviews are up. LJ Cleary, fiance to Lyra Valkyria, I also interviewed too. So those are some fun ones too. More on tap to come here. Really love doing this channel. Love working with Zach Haydorn, who does an excellent job at what he does. Robert does a wonderful job with his Nocturnal Knockout show. Very specific, fun kind of topics. Ashley Mann, so awesome on Saturdays. Be sure to check her out, the Kick Ash podcast. She does great live interaction with fans. Probably better than what I did in that live chat with Magnum and Greg. But yeah, Magnum and Greg are also on here. So we definitely did not cover other wrestling topics on that show. Did not feel like the right moment to do that. But we'll be back probably next week to chat more. But thank you all for tuning in. Hit like, hit share, and I'll see you next time here on Brass Ring Media.
That bitch hit me with a toaster.